With Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's insane Green New Deal, we once again have another episode of the Democrats are being split apart to a ridiculous degree, and it's now freaking them out. Now, I'm going to do another video about the Green New Deal later on because there's just so much. Man, people are going crazy. But first, let's talk about this. This is from the National Journal. I saw this. I thought it was pretty interesting. Democrats are boosting Trump's re-election prospects. Their top 2020 presidential hopefuls are embracing socialist-minded economic policy, from a Green New Deal to single-payer health insurance. It's playing right into the president's hands. So this is by Josh Kroshar. I believe I've quoted this guy in the past. It says, anyone tracking the positions of the leading 2020 Democratic presidential candidates would think there weren't any moderates left in the party. California Senator Kamala Harris reiterated that her co-sponsorship of Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All legislation would mean the abolition of private insurance at a nationally televised town hall last month. 5 leading candidates endorsed a Green New Deal that imposes a top-down revolution of American society to mitigate the impact of climate change. But when you look at the polls breaking down the actual Democratic electorate, you'll find limited support for such socialist-minded schemes. Broaden out to the overall electorate, and it's easy to see how Democrats could be giving President Trump a lifeline to a second term despite his widespread unpopularity. This is why I make these videos. This is why I talk about this all the time. Is it not plain to see for anybody who is socially liberal on the left what is happening? The average American doesn't want to make a jump 20 feet. You know, you've got this platform, and you've got moderates who have just been shoved off and pushed into the cliff, pushed into the crevice, in between what's now the far left and the right. And you've got Democratic politicians just continually going for the squeaky wheel. So I genuinely believe what's happening is that the narrative is getting away from the Democrats. I have some theories about this. And what I was thinking recently is that for the longest time, we know that that journalists tend to be liberal. Now, conservatives have accused the media of being liberal media for a long time, and then liberals say, oh, that's not true, it's fake. But yeah, most media jobs are in cities. Most cities are blue. So most of the people hired living in these areas are liberal. So for the longest time, these journalists are putting out information. But what happens when the journalists start losing their minds? What happens when the journalists start losing their influence? What happens when they start following each other on Twitter, eating their own refuse? Okay, a journalist will write a story, their buddy will see it, rewrite it, and this will happen for months. It'll just keep going. What ends up happening? The Democratic politicians, thinking this is the opinion of middle America, embrace insane garbage nonsense game of telephone fake news. And so what happens? You see Kamala Harris iterating, abolishing private insurance. I'd be willing to bet most Democrats are probably okay with private insurance. Now, don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people recognize we have problems in the healthcare industry. I think we need reform. I'm okay with a public option. And many people have stated the Democrats' official position is a public option alongside a private option. I think that makes a lot of sense. But then you get these politicians going up for 2020 talking about things only a fringe minority actually want. And I'm not saying universal healthcare. I think a lot of people do want universal healthcare. I just don't think it's possible. I think that's one of the biggest problems we have. But anyway, let's read on, because we've also got another story that I want to poke fun at. This is a story in Politico where Nancy Pelosi heavily criticizes Ocasio-Cortez, which is a point I wanted to make about how the Democrats are being split. How many times do we see these examples in the media? The Democrats are breaking in half. We're going to end up with 3 parties. I don't know what else is going to happen. But let's read on. He says, this is really, really important. It's a quote. We are on an out-of-control roller coaster going 100 miles per hour, and we have no functioning brake, said one liberal Democratic strategist who is alarmed by the rising tide of socialism within the party. No one is leading, and that void could not be more clear. What's so remarkable about this rapid leftward shift is that it's working against the party's best interests, both for the individual candidates and their chances of defeating Trump next year. So many candidates are trying to fill the most progressive lane of their party that they're splitting that share of the vote evenly. At the same time, there's plenty of evidence that many rank-and-file Democrats are looking for a pragmatist who can actually win the presidency. They're going nuts. How many times have we heard? You had Michael Avenatti, who's basically out of the picture at this point, in an interview said the 2020 Democrat needs to be a white man. Why? Where did you get that idea? It's because they're being indoctrinated by the far left and identitarianism. So they naturally start pushing racist rhetoric. There was an interview in USA Today where they talked to a Democrat, and he said the same thing. We got to get a white man. Are you joking? It's like they forgot Obama was president for 2 terms. I think we've progressed. They're regressive, plain and simple. And the people they're speaking to are a fringe minority. 8%, according to YouGov data, 8% are progressive. Most liberals, we saw this data, I've talked about this so many times, they're called, what is it called? Exhausted majority. They're just not interested anymore. You've lost them. You're not speaking to them anymore. They've given up. That's terrifying. And that means the conservatives and moderates, I believe moderates are also considered, no, actually, I think the moderates were in the exhausted majority, but the progressives are much smaller compared to moderate conservatives and far right, not far right, what do they call it? There's like the very conservative and moderate conservative, and they outnumber progressives. But let's read on. One of the most valuable deep dives into the American electorate is the Pew Political Typology Survey, which in 2017 broke down the various constituencies within both the Democratic and Republican and Democratic parties. Among the Democrats, it identified 4 groups: solid liberals, opportunity Democrats, disaffected Democrats, and devout and diverse. Only the solid liberals were down-the-line progressives. The remaining 2/3 of Democrats held ideologically diverse views, with some unapologetic free marketers, while others holding more traditional cultural viewpoints. And that's solid, solid liberals, 19% of the overall electorate among the left. I think if you actually, of the overall electorate, I think they're talking about everything there, okay. It's different data from what I was talking about from YouGov. The most telling questions came in the economic portion of the survey. It found most Democrats agreed on a generous social safety net, but were split on the meritocratic view that Americans can get ahead through hard work. The party was also divided on whether to raise taxes on wealthier Americans, making $250,000 a year. Only 23% of solid liberals said taxes on the wealthy should be kept the same or lowered. At least 45% of every other Democratic constituency agreed. Here's my position. I believe that people making over maybe $1 million or more, I don't sit there and go over policy and economics, but I do believe we need a higher tax bracket. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez proposed 70% taxes for all income over 10 million. I think that's way too high. I'm thinking, 50 to 60 maybe for income over 5 to 10 million. And the reason for it is it's essentially a check. It's a check on the rapid expansion of power. The monopolization of power is bad, period. When you have socialism and communism, you snap your fingers and monopolize power. We don't want to do that. Capitalism slowly allows for the monopolization of power, which is why it's better in a lot of ways. However, eventually you do find that very few individuals control way too much. And with that power, then you essentially end up with autocracy and oligarchy. Those are bad things. That's going to strip the rights away of the individuals. It's going to make it very, very difficult for other individuals to become successful. And so I believe a progressive tax can help balance things out. And an easy way to explain it is I've talked about this before, but I'm going to try and just say it very, very quickly. If you need $77,000 to live a middle-class life, any income beyond that can be invested. If you're making $10 million, you have a ton of money to invest, and you can be independently wealthy, which means you don't have to work anymore. You put it in some investments, you sit back, you collect interest, you get your returns, historical returns of 7% or whatever. You can be independently wealthy, meaning you're no longer a contributing member to society, essentially. And I'm still okay with that concept, right? That you've reached a certain point where you can relax, or you've done so well, you have provided for your family so that they can relax and they can live life to the fullest extent possible and be wealthy. I have no problem with wealth, but I do think we need to slow that process. Otherwise, we end up with people so powerful they buy politicians. The corporations become too influential, start manipulating people. We end up with mass media controlled by 6 companies. It's dangerous. Okay, this is why we have antitrust laws. So I don't think. I think 70% is really, really high, but that's where I sit, right? And so when I look at these things, it genuinely makes me alarmed, right? I also agree with a generous social safety net, but I also believe that you do succeed through hard work. I believe that's a fact. It's really frustrating to me because I work all day, every day. I take no days off, ever. For the past 2 years, I have worked nonstop with no days off. Right now, I'm sitting in Los Angeles. In order to be here, I had to produce something like 8 or 9 videos in one day so that I was able to get on my plane to get out here, because being on a plane was a huge waste of time for me, meaning I had to travel. it was like 9 hours total of me getting to the airport, getting back. That's a lot of time for me, where I'm normally working all day. I have to fly, so that means I had to go double time. I break my back, and then I see the Green New Deal saying, if you're unwilling to work, we're going to give you money anyway. Well, hold on. I agree with a social safety net, absolutely. I absolutely agree with a progressive tax, 100%. I am absolutely fine paying taxes. Now all the libertarians are going to be like, taxation, and they're going to yell at me. No, that's just me, that's fine, right? If I want to pay it, then that's fine. Because I believe that I'm contributing to something bigger. I believe the government is very corrupt. I believe our programs are very bloated and need to be reformed, for sure. But just because we have bloated corruption doesn't mean the system itself is bad. So it needs to be fixed, for sure. But I like the idea, I do. I just think what we're seeing with the Democratic Party now is moderate liberals like me, social left individuals, are staring down the barrel of far left insanity. I'm going too long, but let me just, I really want to point out this story because this is about, apparently it's about Nancy Pelosi talking about a government shutdown. But the reason why I want to bring this up is there was one quote, and she said something about the Green New Deal, and maybe I should just do a quick search. So, Pelosi's efforts paid off. Where is this quote? The California Democrat did agree to launch a select committee on climate change, similar to the one she created back in 2007 when she first became Speaker. Pelosi said Wednesday, however, the panel would not be tasked with writing a specific bill and brushed off the idea of the Green New Deal as a suggestion. She said, it will be one of several or maybe many suggestions we receive. The Green Dream, or whatever they call it. Nobody knows what it is, but they're for it, right? And this is a really good example of the split in the Democratic Party. I'm going a little bit too long, but we'll just end here. The final thought, I believe in social safety nets, progressive taxes. I like the idea of a public option in healthcare. I am not a conservative, by no means. But who do I vote for? I feel like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are just awful, awful people. They're duplicitous. I don't trust them, and I don't believe they actually care about what they talk about. The far left, Ocasio-Cortez, I believe she really does care. I really, really do. I just think she's insane, okay? There was a while where I was like, I liked some of the things she's talking about. Campaign finance reform, prison reform. I'm going to go too long. We'll end here. The point is, there's the corporatist, centrist, not necessarily even centrist, the corporatist neoliberal types that I think are liars, and the far left, who I believe are genuinely passionate, but they're just nuts. So I'll stop there, plain and simple. I feel like there's no hope for the moderate left, for the left in general. It's falling apart. Stick around. I got another video coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you then.